So you may, during this experience, begin to realize why yoga teachers will often say Shavasana is the most important asana of the entire series they've led you through. But they don't often tell you why. So this position is the same as you get the details of in your yoga class, but you can either, if comfort is the key here, so you may want a pillow under your head. One Iyengar teacher told me in Singapore that the goal was to have your forehead and chin at the same elevation. And so if they're not, then you might want a pillow, but not too high a pillow so that your forehead is higher. If you have lower back pain, it can be helpful to put a bolster under your knees. If you have significant back pain, it can be helpful to place your feet up on a chair. That will help to take the compression out of your sacrum. And one little fine point that actually is very important, and that is that your palms are up. This helps to open your shoulders and your chest, but it also is an indicator to you that this is not sleep time. This is because this is an unnatural position. Because you may find yourself, when the key, there's a somatic key that this is meditation rather than sleep. And that may be just that your palms are up. So you know whenever your palms are up that this is meditation time, not sleep time. Begin the meditation by releasing all thoughts, fantasies, memories, and bringing your attention into the domain of your body. And give your full, bare attention now to tactile sensations only. The sense of touch. And give your attention exclusively to sensations of solidity and firmness where your body is contacting the floor. These are said to be expressions of the earth element, that solidity and firmness. And it is a very grounding way to begin a meditation, in that it interrupts the flow of that chattering mind. To begin each meditation, we do what Padmasambhava calls settling the body in its natural state. And this natural state has three qualities: relaxed ease, stillness, and vigilant attention. So establish that base of relaxation by letting your attention now roam throughout the body. Simply noticing tactile sensations wherever they arise. That might be an itch in your scalp, a sensation of heat or cold, fluttering in a muscle, give those your full attention without having to categorize them, diagnose them, understand them, label them. Bear attention. If among these sensations you discover any tension or any pain, allow your breath to be drawn to that sensation as if magnetically. And then release the tension or pain on the exhalation. Let it flow out of your body on the breath. Continue to deepen your relaxation with each out-breath, releasing all tension as if with an inaudible sigh. Notice the degree of clarity that you have, that brightness of your engagement with these tactile sensations. This, at the beginning practice of your meditation, will usually be brightest at the beginning of your meditation. So try to maintain that degree of clarity. As you continue to relax ever more deeply with each exhalation. Deepen your relaxation by scanning your shoulders. If there's any tension there, release it. Let your breath be drawn to it. Scan your neck. Scan your face, the jaw, your mouth, your eyebrows. If you discover any tension there, let your breath be drawn to it and release it from your body on the out-breath. As you continue to deepen your relaxation, notice the quality of your engagement. Is it bright? Is it curious? Or are you beginning to become drowsy? Don't give in to that habitual association of relaxation and dullness. If you're becoming drowsy, you can open your eyes if they're closed. That's the simplest and easiest first antidote. You can also focus on the tactile sensations of the inhalation. You brighten your clarity on the inhalation and deepen your relaxation with the tactile sensations of the exhalation. Now that you have established the base of relaxation and balanced it with clarity, let's begin to add stability by giving your attention a target to focus on. Direct your bare attention now to the abdomen and take 3 deep full breaths as you notice those sensations. And then after those 3 deep full breaths, give up all control of the breath. Simply allow the body to breathe itself. The key is to not prefer that the breath be different than it is. It's not a pranayama. You don't try to equalize the inhalation and exhalation. You don't try to make it longer or shorter. Simply let it be. Keep your bare attention focused on these sensations of the abdomen as the breath enters and leaves your body. The rise and fall. These coarse sensations are easy to find, and they can rivet your attention. If your mind has wandered off, simply and gently bring it back. You recollect with mindfulness, what is my object? Ah, tactile sensations at the abdomen. keep your attention focused only on tactile sensations of the abdomen. Maintain the clarity of your meditation, that brightness of your engagement. If you give up control of the breath, each breath is a discovery. Let it be unprecedented. Expand your awareness to the room again. Stretch your arms and your legs. And gently roll over onto your right side. And enjoy that relaxed pose for a moment. The reclining Buddha. And then gently push up against that solid, firm earth back to your seated position. Are there any comments or questions about that experience? I didn't hear any snoring.
I was about to.
What's that?
I was about to. I realized, oh, nothing going on. But it was interesting how you're so used to sleep when you're just relaxed.
Yeah.
It was just very, very interesting exercise. Try to hear.
Yeah. And it feels like meditation would be different, doesn't it? If you could do that?
Yeah. I have a question. There's a point where you completely let go of all holding. The point where you begin to let go of all of that holding, I find that my attention naturally becomes very spacious.
Ah.
Now, after that point, when I then try to focus it on an object, it becomes constricted again. How do you maintain the sense of relaxation and spaciousness and awareness, but then bring it onto an object? Because I find that the spacious, awake awareness is a natural open space, and I want to stay there.
Yeah.
So when I begin to bring it onto an object, it feels as though I'm actually constricting my awareness as opposed to allowing it to flourish.
Yeah, you definitely are constricting your awareness. So what we're doing here, you will like where we're going at the end of the day, because you can do a breath meditation with awareness, and the whole point is to maintain the spaciousness of your awareness while you are aware of the breath. But this is so what we're doing now is, and then we will use that awareness for meditations tomorrow. So that's coming, and people will often, it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for this new technique of what I call the awareness of the breath. Because people have that feeling, that experience, that the spaciousness is wonderful. Can't I just stay there? Isn't there? Because it can feel very stable, very spacious, and extremely vivid is what that leads to. So yeah, we are going there. What we're doing now, there are basically, in your development of shamatha, two different elements that we're working with. One is selective focused attention, and another is open presence, you could say, or open awareness. And so we are at this point developing selective focused attention, meaning that you focus on one thing only and exclude everything else. So that is going to feel like such a relief compared to the intrusions of that default wandering mind, especially something that you've heard over and over again and would like to be free of. And it's all part of mind training, adding the mute switch. And then when we get to this other practice of awareness of the breath, it may feel effortless in comparison to what the selective focused attention. So yes?
I have a quick question. It feels like you said before we're not trying to map out I felt like I was almost visualizing my stomach, visualizing sensation in my stomach instead of just feeling sensation. Is there any advice on how not to do that?
Continue to notice that it seems to be a different sense field, meaning the mental. It's a mental visualization obviously isn't a tactile sensation. And the interesting thing is that for many of us, that can be difficult to actually focus on tactile sensations, because so much of our experience of the world now is virtual and conceptual. And even our own experience of our body, even a kiss can be a conceptual experience. And that's part of the power of a kiss, is that it may be, the thing that shocks you out of conceptual experience, but when it becomes familiar, it can become conceptual experience. So that's part of the value of the training of bare attention, is to begin to notice the distinction between a tactile sensation and the conceptual overlay, and recognize them as different. and then going back to discarding the conceptual overlay as a distraction. And that can just be a long practice in itself.
I was noticing that, like, in trying to relieve tension, the more I would focus on trying to relieve tension in one place or maybe in other places, I would feel more tension, and then I would get back to this, just let it go, just like, instead of focusing on one thing, just, it's kind of similar to what he was saying earlier.
Uh-huh.
I would just let that go and then just feel a little more expansive, just letting the whole body go.
Uh-huh.
And that would release more tension than trying to specifically focus on one point of releasing tension.
Great. You guys are going to be very primed for where we're going. Yes. What's your name?
Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
Okay. I have very stupid questions, probably.
Probably not.
No. Well, this is like the opposite of the type of meditation I learned like 30 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I took mind awareness, the visual, as silver mind, that type. So this is very different. When you were saying the breathing, like, were you supposed to do and then out of your mouth, or just normal breathing? Or I was like analyzing how do you breathe? Like, you were saying concentrate on your breathing, but you were saying inhale and then exhale. Does that mean through the nose and then out of the mouth, or is your mouth shut? Is your mouth open? Is the stomach up? Is it just natural?
Yeah, so it's
it's
totally natural. You release all control of it. Let the body breathe itself. And what you
just normal breathing, not like exaggerated breathing.
Not exaggerated it at
like
all.
Like through the nose, out of the mouth, the stomach up.
Wherever it's happening.
Okay.
And you're just focusing on those sensations of the natural breath. So this is the breath settled in its natural state. We've settled the body in its natural state. We are beginning then to work on settling the breath in its natural state. And then tomorrow we'll work on settling the mind in its natural state. So the breath then, you don't prefer a long breath over a short breath. You don't prefer that the exhalation be equal to the inhalation. You don't count. One of my first meditation teachers said that you equalize the inhalation and exhalation by 5 heartbeats each, and you find the heartbeat in the eyelid. And so that was a very powerful tactile sensation, basically, of finding the heartbeat in the eyelid. But you don't do that. You just let the body breathe itself. And so when you do that then, and that, I think for most people, will probably be through the nose. But for some people, depending, if you have congestion, it may be through the mouth. But where we're going next with the breath focusing on the nose, then that is really going to be exhalation and inhalation through the nose. Predominant, unless you have congestion, or there are some meditations that specify the mouth, but generally just let it be. So you will never outgrow this infirmary. Don't think that, okay, we did that, now we're going to move on to the more advanced practices. That was so grammar school or something. And I am now a Dzogchenpa. I'm doing awareness meditations now, and I'm not, I've outgrown that breath. Well, I guess that would probably mean that you have outgrown mental afflictions then also. Because this is the really most powerful tool that you have for stilling the ruminating mind when, for instance, you have just gotten a performance review. That one is really tough. So social judgment, whenever social science researchers want to investigate how stress interferes with performance, They create the most stressful situation possible. And that's somebody criticizing you. You know, especially somebody that you care about or whose opinion you value. And they are judging you negatively. It's extremely stressful. And, well, just a footnote to that. What is equally inhibiting of performance is when the judgment is your own voice. Curious, isn't it? But anyway, judgment and criticism is powerfully inhibiting and experienced as stress. So, let's just say that you've just had one of those very stressful experiences where you have either gotten a performance review from somebody whose opinion you value, and it could be a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend. They have just told you about your failings, or you have given one, and maybe with a little tinge of anger to it. How long does that last? One vodka? Do I hear two? All afternoon? Will you wake up with it? It can be very enduring, can't it? Because it's a very stressful thing. That kind of discord, it can just really dominate your mind. That loop plays over and over and over again. He said, she said, what I could have said, what I should have said. If I would have said that, that would have clinched it. That would have shut her up. God, I'm going to do that. I can't wait to see her again. And I'm going to be well rehearsed. She caught me off guard last time. But okay, what am I going to say? Oh yeah. Okay, good, that. On and on. Oh my God. Isn't it fatiguing? All right, I got the message. Shut up, will you? I mean, that's what we would like to say to that ruminating voice, but if we don't have the off switch for that ruminating mind, it just goes on and on and on. Anybody ever experienced that? Am I the only one? So, how nice it would be. This is your most powerful tool. This is why Alan calls it the infirmary. It's where you go when you get beat up. You need some first aid. You choose the most relaxed position and the most coarse object. This is the one that has the power to do that, to still that ruminating mind, to end that chatter. And then you'll develop other tools as you go along also. But again, 6 weeks into 8-week retreat, Alan was telling people, look, you're coming to me saying you can't merge your mind into space because of that ruminating mind? Go to the infirmary. So you're never going to outgrow it. 20 years from now, why aren't you ever going to outgrow it? Well, because that will mean that you didn't get a performance review for a long, long time, or given one. The stress, you haven't had that runaway ruminating mind. It isn't bothering you. So, things have improved in your mental abilities then, I think, at that point. You aren't, mental afflictions just aren't happening so much anymore. Well done. But until that point, until we have that, can still that loop and say, thank you very much, I got the point. I don't think hearing it another 99 times, I'm going to learn anything from it. Click. Then, until that point, you need to go to the infirmary, or you need to develop that skill to be able to do that. So you never outgrow it. But we are going to move on. Why isn't that the only meditation that we do? There is a Burmese tradition that is their entire path to Shamatha through 9 stages, all the way from being able to place your attention on an object to effortless single-pointed concentration for 4 hours without the slightest bit of laxity or excitation. That's what they use, just the abdomen. But we have more tools. Why wouldn't we choose to do that? because it's extremely relaxing, right? But it could be too relaxing. It could be that you need some clarity. And you know, they're discovering clarity in the very, very subtle tactile sensations. You get very, very subtle. But there are other approaches to developing clarity. So you're going to have two different decisions to make when you begin every meditation session. One is, which position should I meditate in? Shavasana, seated, standing. Based on what does my attention need? You will also have a choice then of what object should I meditate on. So far you have the abdomen. Now we're going to introduce a more subtle object, and that is the tactile sensations of the breath at the nose. Why would you choose a more subtle object? Well, something happens when you choose a more subtle object, and that is these tactile sensations of the breath at the nose feels like is there a lot of sibilants out there? Nice, a lot of S's, or is that okay? Sounds okay? Okay. That got distracted. Reboot. So the subtle sensations, because we have chosen a more subtle sensation, the volume of breath, it's no longer that very coarse rise and fall of the abdomen. Easy to find, it can rivet, very compelling object. These sensations of the breath at the nose, they're the stimulations of nerve endings as the air enters and leaves your nose. Maybe a sensation of heat. You know, it could be, the coolness of the breath as it enters your body and warmed up a bit, unless you're in Arizona in the summer, and then it's 110 degrees as it's coming in, and then 98.6 maybe as it goes out. But there could be a difference in temperature, etc. But they're, tactile sensations, but they're much more subtle, right, than that rise and fall. You may also feel, so that might be right at the rim of the nostrils or just inside the nostrils. Or you may eventually, even if you don't at the beginning, feel these tactile sensations of the breath at the upper lip, right under the nose. So Goenka says in his retreats that will happen around day 5 or so of the retreat. And in longer retreats, you begin to, that can really light up. So even if it doesn't happen in the beginning, you may reach a point of stability where all of a sudden you begin to feel these sensations on the upper lip, and then boy, when you do, it's like a neon sign has just been lit up, and you go, why couldn't I, how did I miss that? Because it's now a very large area right under your nostrils. And then you may find that it could be that you feel the tactile sensations most pronounced in the rim of the nostrils on the inhalation and the exhalation on the upper lip. But, you get the idea. Experiment. Be available to discover tactile sensations at that area. But it's exclusive. Again, you're focused only on those tactile sensations there and excluding everything else as a distraction. So it's obviously a lot less going on there. And as you become more stable, also, the volume of breath that you are breathing becomes more and more reduced. So these can become very subtle sensations. So because you have chosen a more subtle object as your chosen object, something interesting happens. A synergetic upward spiral. You have chosen a more subtle object that requires more acute attention, simply to find it. The acuity of your attention that you used for your abdomen isn't going to work there, or you're not even going to find this object. So you have to kind of like refine it. You have to dial up the acuity of the attention. Now that more acute attention reveals a more fascinating object. That more fascinating object has the power to compel your attention. And as your attention is compelled, is more stable on this more subtle object, the clarity, there's a natural increase of clarity associated with the increase of stability. So because of that, because you have chosen a more subtle object, you have ended up with greater stability and greater clarity. And it's said by the masters that I'm studying with that happens only with subtle tactile sensations and not with visual images also. That you don't get that more subtle increase in clarity because of that. You're either on the image or you're off your image with a visual image. It can be fuzzy, or whatever, but it's not an experience like that. So that is the whole progression of shamatha. There are 9 stages of shamatha that Master Kamalashila, the great 8th century adept from Nalanda University, describes in his Bhavana Kramana, the stages of meditation. And we'll talk about those stages a little bit later. But all of these 9 stages are a progression from coarse to subtle. You're basically working with laxity and excitation all through the 9 stages, but you're working with more and more subtle manifestations of the laxity and excitation. And so before we really are able to sustain our attention at level 4, where we're no longer losing our object entirely, our mind is going to be characterized, or our experience of meditation is going to be characterized by these inevitable episodes of default wandering. So just accept that. That is just part of the game. And so accepting it, surrendering to it in a sense, meaning that I am not criticizing myself, I'm not beating myself up because I've had an episode of default wandering. That's just part of the experience. So there are 4 different stages. So what I'm going to tell you now comes from neuroscience research. For the dynamics of this default wandering goes through 4 different stages. So first of all, you try to place your attention on an object. You have chosen your object, you're trying to sustain it, and guess what? Your attention wanders off. So stage 1. And then stage 2, at some point you become aware that you have wandered off your object and you disengage from it. And then 3, you return to your chosen object. And then 4, you are focused a bit for some time on your object, and then it wanders again. So what's really curious to me about that is that every one of those stages involves a different mental or a different brain network. And so we need to train 4 different areas actually to create a whole new network of brain synapses actually as a part of our meditation practice. So as we practice, what's actually beginning to happen is that, so the default wandering, so each one of these 4 different processes and different types of attention related to each of these, to losing your object, to recognizing that you have lost your object, to disengaging from your object, to returning to your chosen object, and then to staying on your object. So what we are doing, you can think of, okay, this practice is all about doing the reps. It's like going to the gym and lifting free weights or something. Or maybe it's more like doing yoga, and that you're just becoming more and more supple. Your flexibility is increasing, whatever, but it's all about practice. You're becoming pliant. And what actually is happening, according to the brain imaging, is that as you are repeatedly, so you recognize, okay, my mind is going to wander. The key is your reaction when you discover that you have wandered. And I'm going to give you the real key in a moment. But what you're going to be doing as you practice these keys then, is that you are actually creating a new network. And the medial network of the brain that is associated with the default wandering, being lost in the default wandering, all of a sudden is creating a new connection to the salience factor of attention, which is the one that is all about disengagement from the distraction. And so what's happening is that as you just continually do the reps, okay, I've been shanghaied by this appearance. I'm going back. What is my object? Oh yeah, tactile sensations of the breath. You just go back there over and over and over again. You're building a shunt, sort of, from the wandering, default wandering, to the disengagement. So the distracting thoughts actually become less sticky, you might say. And you notice that you have wandered more quickly, because there is this pathway now that when you wander, you are automatically going directly to disengagement. So that's when you really can begin to make some progress then. We'll talk about how that happens then when we discuss stage 3 of SHAMATA. But the way then that you actually do that, the reps, what's happening? Okay, you know you're going to be distracted. The key to developing stability is your reaction when you discover that you have been what I call shanghaied, meaning you have been abducted by one of these distracting appearances. And that is, you need to develop a reflex that is, Alan calls the 3 R's. And my 3 R's are a different order than Alan teaches them. And so the way that I teach them is, first of all, the first R is to release your grasp on the distracting object. So there's obviously been a grasping to a mental appearance that took you off. So you release, then you return to your chosen object, which is the tactile sensations of the breath, in this case. So that is what the recollection is all about. You have to remember, what is it? That was my chosen object? Yeah. The tactile sensations of the breath. And then you relax. So it's release, return, and relax. The 3 R's. And you are relaxing by doing that. What you are doing is you are focused on the out-breath. You are relaxing all the way through the out-breath, because the key actually to stability, so this is one that you should put exclamation points and 2 happy faces behind in your notes. The key to stability is the exhalation. And my provocative hypothesis is that you will never lose your object on the inhalation. It will always be on the exhalation. And so you really redouble your effort, your focus on the exhalation, on the tactile sensations of the exhalation, all the way through the final instant of the exhalation. And even then you will notice there's a pause, maybe, between the exhalation and the inhalation. Try to maintain contact with tactile sensations even when there's no air movement there. And if you can do that, you're good for the inhalation. Guaranteed you won't lose it. And so you just really redouble your focus on the tactile sensations of the exhalation all the way through. So the key to stability is the exhalation. So that's why the 3 R's are: release your grasp on the distracting object, that which captivated you or captured you. You recollect what is your, so the 3rd R is to return. But to do that you have to remember what your chosen object was and return to it. And then you relax ever more deeply all the way through, as you're focused all the way through the exhalation and through the pause. Release, return, relax. So you just practice that deliberately over and over and over again, without anxiety, without criticism. You just do it. And that is what is building that shunt then to the disengaging, so that then will be, your time away from your object will be shorter, and then everything begins to change as you begin to build this. So we can say that there are 3 degrees of excitation in this system. There's a coarse excitation, medium, and subtle excitation. In the way Geshe Michael teaches it, it's just 2, coarse and subtle, but 3 in this system. And so the coarse excitation, so either, and it's the same for laxity, there's coarse, medium, and subtle. So with either of the coarse laxity or coarse excitation, you are losing your object completely. With coarse excitation, it feels like you are shanghaied, because and that's my term, because in old Sacramento, one day when I was teaching in Sacramento, I went down to this historic district of Gold Rush days. And there was a plaque on one of the old saloons that said this was the saloon that became notorious for shanghaiing miners. And what would happen would be the miners would plop down their sack of gold dust on the bar and get a bottle of red eye, and drink it on down, and they'd probably get something else spiked. And these were, of course, Chinese miners. And then they would pass out and then be thrown through a trap door behind the bar. And then the trap door, because this was right on the Sacramento River, which flows right into San Francisco Bay. So they'd be put on a ship, and they'd wake up then on their way back to China. They were shanghaied, sent back to China. So that's the way this feels, right? You are abducted, you are shanghaied, and you wake up after 10 minutes sometimes. I can testify it's possible to do a 1-hour meditation and be shanghaied for the entire time. You're just default wandering. I used to do this when I was building at Diamond Mountain. I would do a 1-hour meditation, sit down, and all I would be doing would be a shopping list for what I had to pick up for 4 different building projects out there, And the timer would go off and go, oh, well, okay, that was really fruitful, wasn't it? Got that taken care of. Now I know I, save some time on my way to Home Depot or anything. But so it's very possible you're shanghaied for, and what it feels like. So what happens is that you become cognitively fused with your distraction, meaning you become non-lucid. You are not aware of what's going on. you wake up after 10 minutes and you recognize that you are, I don't know, at, where's a good place to be here? Central Park on a sunny day or something. And maybe there's a concert in the park. And you wake up all of a sudden at this distraction. And you go, how the hell did I get here? Last thing I was aware of, I was focused on my breath. And it feels like I've been gone for a long time, 10 minutes. I have no idea how I got here. It's as if someone snuck up behind you with a chloroform rag and threw you in the trunk and then, threw you out at Central Park. Wow. How did I get here? Anybody ever experienced something like that? You're non-lucid, you're cognitively fused with the distractions, and you can't recall the whole train of appearances that got you there, the whole train of associations. It's like waking up from a non-lucid dream, and all you're aware of is the last episode of the dream. But because it was non-lucid, and you weren't really present during the whole dream, you're waking up from the non-lucid dream, all you can remember is the end of it. So that's like being shanghaied. That's coarse excitation. The reason it is so difficult to recognize the actual moment, it's very, very difficult, very elusive, to recognize when you are being shanghaied, the actual moment of it, the first moment of being shanghaied. Boy, that's difficult. Why is it? Well, what the neuroscience says is that it's the executive function of attention that is responsible for monitoring whether you're on your object or off your object. That executive function of attention, in the description that I saw it, gets recruited into the default network. So the very function that is supposed to tell you whether you're on your object gets shanghaied also. And what it's doing there is it's making a storyline. Its job, what the executive function there is doing, is it's knitting together all of these strange, disparate elements of the wandering mind into a little storyline, a train of associations, and then off you go to another one. So it's that's why it's very difficult, and until you become very well trained, to recognize the moment that you're being shanghaied. And then just a couple of last things before we actually do that meditation. So you can count your breath if that's helpful also. That can be like training wheels. But you don't want to make it intrusive. So it can, most times, the way that I used to do it was intrusive. So that means that it just becomes your object. And the way that it becomes your object is if you do what I call droning the count. 1, 2, 3. I'm doing pretty good. I haven't made it to 3 before. 4.
You can get better at it, like including an and. As you can. And.
Yeah, so you could go to 100 that way, right? You can prove to yourself that you could count to 100. Big deal. All you're doing is you're counting, you're not meditating. So the way that it can be an aid rather than an intrusion is if you punctuate the count. 1, 2. And then it is just brief. It doesn't really knock you off. And so there are varying opinions actually about whether you punctuate the in-breath or the out-breath. actually says you punctuate the in-breath. I think it makes more sense to punctuate the out-breath. And that is, why is that? Why would that be? Because the key to stability is the exhalation. This is the one that you need the aid in, getting to the end of the exhalation. So if you punctuate the end of the exhalation, it gives you a destination. You know you have arrived at the end of the exhalation because it's time to punctuate. And if you punctuate the inhalation, well, it seems like a waste of destination because you're getting a free ride on the inhalation anyway. You're not going to lose your object. So to me, it just makes more sense. But you can experiment. I don't count my breath anyway, you know. And then what you would do is you can count your breath. So you can count from 1 to 10, 1 to 21, and then elaborate systems I've heard Gelugpas instruct that count to 21 and then count down from 21, you know, etc. But boy, it seems to me that if you get to 10, just give up the count. You don't need to count. The whole point of the counting is to simply recognize, oh, I haven't made it to 3 yet. I've been doing this for 4 days now and I haven't made it to 3. So it just kind of clues you that you have become distracted, or how distracted you are. Any question? Yeah.
Were you saying to punctuate the beginning or end of the exhale?
The end of the exhale. So the final instant of the exhalation, right at the pause that may occur before the inhalation again. Because that's where the destination that you want to get to. Right, that's everything you need to know to do this next meditation. This one you can do either in Shavasana again or in the seated position. So just a couple of tips on the seated position. Because we're moving, let's just say the theme is moving towards clarity. So let's just say you've decided that I need more clarity in this meditation. So I'm going to choose a position that supports clarity and an object, a more subtle object that supports clarity. So you can either sit on a cushion, and if you're seated on a cushion, you know, you can just sit like that, what in Boy Scouts we call it Indian position, or you can sit in Siddhasana. This one, you know, with your foot just up in between your calf and your thigh. This one, Master Swatmarama in Bhakti Yoga Pradipika calls the most important asana of all the asanas, because this one you can meditate forever in this position. Not quite, but I mean, it's very, very stable and very simple. You could also do lotus, half lotus, full lotus. Victoria could do lotus, full lotus, probably. Maybe somebody else here. But, you know, for me, that's, you know, I'm not going to meditate for very long in that position. So it doesn't work very well for me. And a lot of people, I hear over and over accounts of old meditators who have really damaged their knees by insisting that they meditate in lotus or half lotus. So this one is very easy. And then in a retreat, for instance, you would want to be ambipedal, meaning that you would want to be able to have your left foot on top also, and then alternate sessions, because it will affect your hips differently and your knees differently, and you know, you can stay fresh between seated sessions. So you can do that. You could also sit in kind of that Zen crouching position, Virasana, a high Virasana, meaning that you put up 3 or 4 bolsters, you know, and you're really, you know, you're crouching on your knees, but you're way high. That one can also work very well. So a lot of different, the point is to be comfortable and not to be, you know, doing it as penance or something. And then the seated position in the chair is a wonderful position. There's no reason not to do that. because what you want to do is be comfortable. And when you are in a chair, the key is that to recognize that almost every chair is built backwards, meaning that the back of the seat is lower than the front. You know, think of a car seat, it's the worst of all, you know, like a bucket seat. You're just kind of, you know, crouched back there. So it forces you into a bad meditation position, because the whole goal of any of the seated positions is to keep your spine erect. And so the way of sitting in a chair and succeeding wonderfully is to come out to the edge of your chair and not sit against the back. And you can also put a cushion on the chair, sit on a cushion on the chair, and so that really can help to roll your pelvis forward. And then if your legs are too short and you're having to be on tiptoe, you can put a cushion under your feet also, so that your thighs are level, parallel with the floor. So it's all, basically the whole goal of the seated position is to keep your spine erect. Most times, if you are feeling dull and any introspection alerts you that you're feeling dull, check your position, and very likely you have slumped like this. And if you just sit erect again after that episode of dullness, it can feel like a jolt of electricity, of energy just shooting up your spine. Another key is the elevation of your chin. So everybody now just close your eyes, and with your chin level, slowly begin to drop your chin towards your chest. And I feel a very dramatic falling off of my clarity. So much so that I almost, by the time my chin gets to my chest, I'm ready to start snoring. And then again, level your chin, close your eyes, and then raise your chin towards the ceiling. I notice a distinct scattering of my attention. So this is why in the 7-point posture of Vairocana that it's said that you keep your chin level, you know, and that you can use this as if you notice that you're lax, you know, that you're feeling a little drowsy, try elevating your chin a little bit. And if you notice that you are, distraction is your big problem, try lowering your chin. And this becomes really, really pronounced when you meditate with your eyes open and just lowering and raising your gaze slightly. That's just really very powerful. Fine tuning. And then some people also can be distracted by saliva. So now that when saliva is produced, you don't have too much choice about what to do with it. You know, it's there. So you only have two choices really. You're either going to spit it or swallow it. So you only really do have one choice. As long as you're visiting someone else's house. So you know that if you're constantly swallowing, that can be very distracting. So the key then is to limit the production of saliva, and you can do that with the position of your tongue. So by just allowing your tongue to curl above the top of your teeth and kind of at the front of your palate, that will just naturally control the production of saliva. You know, and of the 7 points, those are the most important ones, I think. So, let's see. Go ahead and use the restroom if you need to, and otherwise, find your comfortable position